On the 19th of November, 2000 of the 19th year, an interesting news appeared on the Kent Online website. Archaeologists at the University of Christ Church found the remains of a young Anglo-Saxon woman buried with jewelry and a knife. The woman was wearing a necklace of amber and glass beads, a belt with a buckle made of copper alloy, and an iron knife. Experts, after analyzing the found objects, suggested that the woman was buried in the 600th years BC. They believe she was a contemporary of King Ethelbert of Kenton and his Francoist Queen Bertha. In general, historians have decided that this woman was buried 1,400 years ago. According to what criteria this particular period was chosen, it is not clear to me. Historians have so accurately determined the historical period in which this burial was made, and this, in their opinion, is the 580th 600th year BC, that on the basis of these dates, they could assume that the deceased personally knew the mythical King Ethelbert. But only the whole history of Britain was written in the 18th century, on the basis of an 11th century manuscript. Only 3 handwritten documents dating back to the 700th years of our century have survived. Therefore, a contemporary of which fictional king of Britain was the deceased, we should not care. There are no real documents about the history of England before our era. Now we are not interested in the fictitious history of England, we are only interested in this object found in a burial. Silver disc brooch, decorated with semi-precious garnet. The brooch is interesting for its symbol, a purple shamrock on a yellow background, very similar to the radiation icon, namely the second version of the sign. The first sign of radiation danger appeared in the California Laboratory for the Study of Radiation in Berkeley, in 1946 year. It was a purple shamrock on a blue background. The color was not chosen by chance, this shade was not used by any color laboratory marking. The background color was chosen for the reasons that the equipment and laboratories are rarely decorated in blue, and therefore the icon will be more noticeable. In 1948, the staff of the Oak Ridge Laboratory decided to improve the sign from Berkeley and, having cut out a pink shamrock, applied it to cards of different colors. The pink symbol on a yellow background was recognized as the most noticeable at a distance of 6 meters. The brooch from the grave in Kent almost perfectly matched the colors with the radiation hazard sign, approved in 1948 year. In my opinion, a very strange and exact coincidence. In the 50s, after the ANSI standards were maintained, the sign became permissible to draw a black symbol. In Europe, the pink shamrock is almost not found, but in the USA, it is quite common. It turns out that the sign was officially invented in 1946 year, but that's why it began to occur much earlier in our history. The Ken brooch can be taken as a coincidence, but there are things of the 19th century on which we often see a sign of radiation danger. These are stoves. The stoves of the late 19th century have very interesting shapes. Of course, not all of them have a radiation hazard icon, but almost all of them have a very interesting structure, little suitable for loading ordinary firewood or coal. Many models do not have any pipes and ducts at all, as if smoke removal was not required. Also, very often they are decorated with strange vases and cups on top. And this very much intersects with the device of ancient fireplaces. In front of them, there are almost always incomprehensible designs in the form of cups and vases, as if they, too, worked on principles unknown to us. And here is an interesting caricature of the early 20th century. In the center, John Rockefeller and his friends are warming themselves at an oil stove. Bottom left, Andrew Carnegie burns us steel bonds. In the center on the left is a tramp basking in the sun. In the upper left corner, there is a family burning furniture in the fireplace. The most interesting thing is on the top right. A person is warming himself by the fireplace, in which a certain object is glowing, and the name of the radio is on top. The same name is on some furnaces of the 19th century. If we score this word in a search engine, then the first thing that pops up is a link to the chemical element radium. In Latin it will be radium, for the sake of a shiny metal of silvery white color, quickly fading in the air. It is an alkaline earth metal, has high chemical activity, and is radioactive. If you look at the advertisements of the early 20th century, the radio was used almost everywhere. 1905 year, advertising dishes X radio, made with the addition of radii. That's what they wrote. Housewives, we want to draw your attention to our kitchen utensils X radio for cleanliness, health benefits and general usefulness, as well as all the benefits that tend to perfect cooking. They have no equal. The material from which this tableware is made is a scientific preparation of mineral clay, X radio. Wherever our tableware is presented, it brings general satisfaction, approved by the Faculty of Medicine and Cooking professors. 1910th year, advertising face cream with radium. Peau de Verre is more than an exquisite night cream, it contains a real, this miracle element akin to sunlight, which is proclaimed by science as the builder of nature's life. The radii in the cream acts as a spontaneous continuous massage. It charges skin cells with energy so that they shed dirt, strengthens skin tissues, makes its texture thin, elastic, stimulates blood circulation on the face, creating a charming shine of delicate color. Face cream rodier, velvety, and soft. The morning for the face is charming, smooth as satin. Hair tonic pleases both men and women, invigorates the scalp and hair. A box of rodier cream was placed on a photographic plate and left in a dark room. The above-mentioned radiograph was obtained using the radiation contained in the cream. This is the actual presence of radiation in our products, as evidenced by our guarantee of $5,000. Here is an advertisement of the beginning of the 20th century. For the sake of adding toothpaste to soap, chocolate, tea, bath salts. All of this, of course, can be attributed to the usual advertising trick. A new interesting substance appeared, and manufacturers began to say for advertising purposes that they were adding it to their products, although in fact, it was there only on paper. But there is one interesting product where only words could not do. This is a portable heating pad X Radium. A company in Jackson, Michigan, advertised its 10 radium heater as the best and newest heating technology. The advertisement said that one of its main advantages is that it does not require fuel. The heating pad consists of a stamped vessel filled with a substance that attracts heat rays and retains heat. The substance they used was for. If it was almost impossible to check the radiation content in toothpastes, then everything is simple in this heating pad. It either warms or not. Maybe at the beginning of the 20th century, the real ones used radioactive hot water bottles, but we know that radiation is very dangerous for human life. Here's what Wikipedia writes: the premature death of Marie Curie occurred due to chronic radiation poisoning. That's how it was. French scientists Pierre-Marie Curie discovered that the waste remaining after the separation of uranium from uranium ore, uranium tar, mined in the city of Joachimsthal, Czech Republic, is more radioactive than pure uranium. With the personal assistance of the president of the Vienna Academy of Sciences Eduard Suisse and the government of Austria-Hungary, Marie Curie received a ton of slag from her Achim steel for free. Marie Curie processed ore in portions of 20 kilograms, which were heated in huge boilers. From each ton of waste, Maria received from 10 to 20 kilograms of alkaline earth sulfates, which contained a little radium sulfate. Then barium chloride, containing a small amount of radium chloride, was obtained. Curie processed a ton of ore in a poorly equipped, unventilated shed with a leaky roof, which was difficult to warm up in winter. In September 1902, they managed to isolate 1/10 of a gram of radium chloride and determine its atomic mass. The couple spent 4 years on this work. This is what the chemist Wilhelm Oswald said about the laboratory of the Curies. It was a cross between a stable and a potato cellar. And if I hadn't seen the desktops with chemicals, I would have thought that I was just being joked about. Now let's see why Marie Curie died. A man who has been recycling radioactive waste in a poorly heated shed for more than 5 years, who has been breathing sulfates and chlorides for 5 years. After that, Marie Curie, in August of 1903 year, goes on a long bicycle trip, being in the 5th month of pregnancy. She felt unwell and went into premature labor. On the 6th of December 1904, Marie Curie had a second daughter, Eva, who lived 102 years. Marie Curie's husband Pierre did not die because radioactive waste was stored in the basement for 5 years. On the 19th of April 1906, he was knocked down to death by a horse-drawn carriage. In 1911, Marie Curie underwent kidney surgery. In 1914, Maria helped organize the Red Cross Radiology Service. Until 1934th year, Marie Curie led a stormy social and scientific activity. In the spring of 1934th year, while making a car trip, I caught a bad cold. On the 4th of July 1934, she died at the age of 66. How in general could a person who worked with tons of chemicals in a shed for more than 5 years live 66 years? How can we determine whether radiation is to blame or not? And here's how other scientists conducted experiments on the effects of radiation on living tissues. In the 1900th year, the German dentist Otto Volkow noticed that if you apply a cloth soaked in a solution for the skin twice for 20 minutes, inflammation appears, lasting 2 weeks. German chemist Friedrich Oskar Giesel noticed that if you present the eye to a closed box containing radium salts, light is visible on the retina. He also held 270 milligrams of radium salt in his hand for 2 hours, after which he had burns that healed for 2 weeks. Radii, as a source of infinite energy, with its glow-in-the-dark and catchy name in Latin, radiant, was perceived at the beginning of the 20th century as a potential magnifier of any energy, including human energy. The cult of the body and beauty helped the radio to find its niche in the market of numerous products designed to improve beauty or restore health. Radii was associated with gold, the son of the alchemists, through images of radiant light, healing from diseases, and giving wealth, like a philosopher's stone. This is not the first time that glowing substances have deceived scientists' expectations. For example, the German alchemist Henning Brand, evaporating urine, accidentally discovered phosphorus. When he saw the resulting luminous liquid, he thought that it was nothing but the first matter in front of him. Radium is quite rare. For 100 years since its discovery, only a few kilograms of pure radium have been extracted. Marie Curie worked for 12 years to get a grain of pure gold. To isolate just 1 gram of pure radium, it took several wagons of uranium ore, 100 wagons of coal, 100 tanks of water, and 5 wagons of various chemicals. If radium was such an expensive chemical element, then how could it be added to creams and face powder at the beginning of the 20th century? It's very simple. Not pure radium was added, but salt and radium. They have quite an affordable price, and at the same time, they had radioactive properties. Until the 1970s, radium salts were used for the manufacture of luminous paints of constant glow, for marking watch faces and aircraft instruments. Sometimes watches with radium light composition were also produced in civilian version. Also, such a light mass can be found in old Christmas tree toys. We have a very interesting story about how Marie Curie processed tons of radioactive ore in a barn and discovered a new element, radium. There is an old brooch with the image of the symbol of traditional radiation, which should have been invented only hundreds of years after the creation of the brooch. There are very interesting old stoves on which we see a sign of radiation, and a huge part of these stoves did not need chimneys, and had very small furnace openings, unsuitable for loading firewood and coal. Also, in many castles and mansions, we see a lot of strangely designed fireplaces with incomprehensible metal objects inside. There are very interesting photos of old stoves. They have a very well-designed shape for better heat transfer, but the most interesting thing is the shape of the handles. The handle looks like a thermostat control. Look at the handles, they are equipped with 2 holes or dots, and this is all repeated on other models of furnaces. Very technological devices and similar furnaces used other types of energy. They were heated by some kind of radiation. It could have been the radiation of radioactive materials like radio or uranium, but most likely these furnaces used an unknown type of radiation that was hidden from us at the beginning of the 20th century. This mysterious energy receivers and storage devices that we see on the roofs of old mansions and churches. Someone today calls atmospheric electricity, someone is more inclined to the theory of ether rotation, but in most cases it's just theories. How this global energy network worked, we can only guess. I think that, at the beginning of the 20th century, there was a large-scale operation of hiding ancient technologies based on the radiation of materials and fields unknown to us, in order to switch all of humanity to coal and oil. At the beginning of the 20th century, a worldwide information stuffing was carried out, the purpose of which was to erase the real meaning of the word radio in people's memory. It seems that, until the beginning of the 20th century, people used some kind of practically free source of energy, not controlled by the government, in order to make people more dependent on the central government, than the production of furnaces using radiation similar to radioactive as heating. And in order for people to forget about the past wireless radio technologies, it was necessary to give this word a different meaning, and this word was called the element of radio, recently discovered by Marie Curie. They told the whole world a touching story about how a woman in some kind of shed was able to extract a grain of shining substance from a mountain of radioactive waste. This story was promoted by all the media, and the whole world has already learned about the feat of a female chemist. Then she was awarded the Nobel Prize. And then the advertising business got involved. A huge advertising company inspired people that for the sake of a very rare and very useful element, for the sake of the word, they began to write on chocolate, shampoos, powder, and even whiskey. For 10 years, people have simply been forced to impose a new meaning of the word radio. And no one believed the stories of the old people that in the 19th century, there were stoves that did not use firewood, and called them radium too. Everyone forgot about autonomous heat sources, which do not need firewood and coal. The advertising campaign was very successful, and now we associate the word radium with a chemical element, and not with the global energy network of the 19th century, where it was possible to heat a house with free energy anywhere in the world, without depending on the government. That's it, watch my channel.